Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in on this presentation. Check your blind spots, areas that dentists must give focus on during practice reopening. I'm Carrie Weber, and I am the co-owner and chief communications officer of the Jameson Group, and I am so happy to be on this presentation today with my good friend for many years, Lisa Philp, the Chief Visionary Officer of Transitions Group out of the beautiful country of Canada. And Lisa, you and I have known each other for many years.
Yes, many decades.
Many decades, and a lot of history and a lot of life lived between us together. And it's our pleasure at Jameson to collaborate with the amazing organization that is the Transitions Group organization. So much shared philosophy and alignment between our companies that it seems very natural that we would join forces and share our insights, and with both the United States and with Canada. And so I want to thank you, Lisa, for taking this time.
My pleasure, Carrie. We're all in the same boat.
We are. And
Dentistry's all in the same boat.
You know, we've had several conversations over the last several months, checking the temperature of what we are each working on with clients across the continent. And there are so many similar struggles that everyone is working through. And as you and I continue to have conversations, as you know, many practices in the United States are starting to reopen and are preparing for reopening. And you're starting to plant those seeds of considerations with your clients as well. And as we talk through that, we just determined together some blind spots that I feel we both agreed doctors, team leaders, practice owners, if they're not giving attention to it now in preparation, it's going to turn around and bite them later. Yeah. Those blind spots that may not feel urgent in the scheme of things for where you are right now in terms of stability and survival mode. But it's important as you consider practices, what reopening looks like for you. There are these blind spots that it's never too late to get to work on these. It's never too late to put the priority on them as they should be. And Lisa and I want to spend some time in conversation about what these blind spots are in our perspective, and to give you some sparks of insight and hopefully inspiration for you to take away and start putting into place and working on in your own unique scenario, wherever you may be practicing today. So Lisa, you ready to get started?
Sure.
So the first blind spot that we were talking about together is, in my opinion, one of the most important areas of focus for you as the practice leaders, really in any business that has been impacted. Obviously, importantly to us as dentistry, is paying attention and being intentional in communication with your team and with your patients. If you've gone silent in your survival mode, it is time to not be silent anymore. It's time to engage, and it's time to communicate to make sure everyone's on the same page, that everyone feels safe, everyone has that trust and is comfortable and ready, whether they're a team member of yours in your practice or whether they're a patient that you're looking to bring in for future appointments. So Lisa, you shared a lot from your team with me in terms of what you're hearing, and some great questions that team members or patients may be asking. Thoughts from your perspective in terms of what those blind spots may be in communication that doctors or team leaders may be assuming incorrectly, and how they can offset those assumptions.
Well, I think if we begin with the team, and oftentimes the team doesn't always go to their leader or their owner to ask the questions. So we sometimes call it, what's the unspoken question that's coming out in dialogue with the teams that have all been sitting at home in their own homes with their own challenges and worries and stress and and blind spots with being taken out of the workplace. But a big one is it time for me to return, and am I going to be safe? And I think as a leader, we have an obligation or responsibility to model the security, whether it's job security or whether it's security of their own safety, because they are coming into a time when the dental auxiliaries now have to rise to the same level of the dentist, which is at high medical grade, with these sterile conditions, with the obligation to flatten this virus and to not be a cause of it. So I think it's really important if the leader hasn't engaged through isolation, it is absolutely now is time, because people left in their own imagination without any communication can create things that sometimes aren't really real, or it drives more fear than necessary. So a doctor doing a written message to their team, getting them prepared that not only is their job role going to need to be revisited because there's so much change, but also what are the changes they've made to the facility, to the equipment, and to their in-service training before they come back. Because if you think about it, a dental auxiliary is not officially maybe classified as an essential worker, but they're coming back being asked to be in a position in healthcare as an essential worker, just like the nursing homes and the front line of the hospitals. So there's a mindset shift as a leader. We've got to not only change in ourselves, right? That let's grieve the past. We're not about getting back to what we were, this term overused now, the new normal. We're going to hear about that for a long time.
Right.
The challenge with the new normal for a dental team member, though, is their normal's been at home. Now they're going to be called back. Am I safe? What is my role? And what are the massive changes that have to be made different from when I worked there before? The really important part.
I love that, Lisa, and something to add in terms of that mindset of safety. Am I safe? Physically safe, but also am I emotionally safe to communicate my concerns, my questions? Have we, as practice owners, leaders, dentists, opened up opportunity for our team members to ask those questions that they may be holding in that are making them worrisome? Do they feel safe to come to you and say, I'm worried, I'm afraid, or what's this going to look like? Do I have a job? And all of the questions that they may be asking that they don't feel comfortable coming to you, we have to give them those open door opportunities. So are you intentionally scheduling time to check in with your team members, keeping them, as Lisa said, abreast of the steps you're taking to elevate safety, physical safety in the facilities, while also to provide a safe and healthy environment for your team to engage together, ask questions, and be a part of the process of re-entry into the practices. If they can be involved, if they can be a part of the solutions, a part of the process, and if you're giving them the opportunities to refine their skill sets and put those new processes into place, they're going to adapt more effectively and be more engaged, less afraid, more ready to re-enter with you. What we're finding here with clients are the ones that have stayed connected, the ones that have planned proactively together as a team, and the doctors that have allowed the team members a place at the table to ask questions, to have these conversations very transparently, very openly, and the ones that have clearly communicated specific steps they're taking to keep them safe and keeping their team as a priority. Those are the ones that are stepping up to the plate and are stepping in healthily bonded as a team to be as successful as they can be in reentry. So, for doctors that have not prioritized communication in terms of their leadership with their team members, this is going to be difficult because now more than ever, your ability to effectively communicate with your team is going to be key. Because not only do you have to communicate with them now in preparation for reentry, but there's going to be a lot of time that you're going to need to reconnect throughout your dental days to pause, reflect on how things are going, and adapt in the moment based upon what you're learning in the real life element of practice.
Yeah. And remember too, your team members have been sitting at home listening to all the different media, watching a death counter, some of them. I've highly encouraged them to stop watching the death counter, but that has an impact on your fear factor, and they're going back into healthcare. And I think the important stand for a leader to take is that the changes being made are going to be based on science, fact, not fear, and their safety is going to be the number one priority. And I think then letting them know what's being done for what's required for the COVID cycle of care. How are they going to have to come in every day, and they're going to have to do a screening? How are we protecting with the equipment? What equipment will they have? There's lots of different things that are being done to prepare for reopening. Otherwise, the practice can't reopen, regardless. Right? That sometimes the dentist just assumes that the team just knows they're taking care of it all. Yes. But I say, get in front of them, do a Zoom call. You know what? Connect with people. Physical distancing will be dentistry's demise, but we're going to get through it because we're going to wear astronaut suits so we can get close and make a living. But I think get close to them now, and you know what? Just open it up to an open forum. There's no such thing as a bad question. And like Carrie and I, as professional coaches, know we don't have to have all the answers. You can parking lot it and get back to them, and just make sure that they are prepared. They don't come in saying, "Why can't we do it the old way?" Because they don't know what's gone on in this interim, and all the stress of the owner and the buying, and you know what guideline do I follow, and how long do blotlets stay in the air after I leave? We've been breathing aerosols in dentistry for decades, right? So there's a lot of take the complexity out of things, make it about what we've done our whole life. Carrie and I are loving this because this is our whole life. Change, writing systems, adapting, right? Like modifying. It's not as easy for sometimes for leaders, but I think the biggest challenge I see is not letting a leader get the fear of the future, or that not knowing what tomorrow holds, be a way that their attitude brings like negativity and worry. Right? Worry causes bad decision making.
You know, decisions made out of outside of logic are poor decisions. So it's very difficult to make good logical decisions and plans in panic mode. So from the beginning, what I've been saying for leaders, if you're struggling with this right now, is you have to, you know, we teach a lot, and Lisa, I'm sure you do too, about emotionally flooding. And we talk about that psychological mindset in how we communicate with patients, but it's also in a personal state. How can you have an awareness of where you are emotionally in making decisions? Are you emotionally flooded where you're squishing out all the logic in your mind and just doing something out of fear or panic or frustration or whatever that shotgun decision is that you're making? Or have you thought this out? And as you communicate with your team members, as you communicate with your patients, the why behind the what, the why behind the decision, sharing that process, the research you've done, the reason behind the decision, the reason behind the steps, that gives a great deal of trust and comfort in knowing, oh, you've done your due diligence, you're doing this because of this, and here will be the impact, and here's why you've chosen this process or this tool or whatever the case may be. You know, when we talk about, and I want to talk about with you, Lisa, communicating with patients as well, but for either way, when we're talking with our team members, when we're talking with our patients, that connection, that string of trust that connects us has to be honored. And if we're not communicating and being transparent and giving that space to have good dialogue with our team members, and a safe place for questions to be asked for team and for patients, really partnering together, it's very difficult to keep that line of trust connected. And I, as a team member, have got to know that, do you care about me? Do you care about my safety? Do you care about the patients? And are you going to keep me safe? Can I count on you? Can I count on you? Even if you don't know the answer to my question, can I count on you to find answers and to partner with me through this? And that piece of trust is going to be key.
Yeah, another piece that came up too with all of the the communication with the team is, if you think about it, these women, most of them are women, okay, not to be gender specific, but they have spent 60% of their waking hours with each other for sometimes years, and they have been disconnected from each other. So when they see a leader bring them together and they can see each other, you know, I wish I would have bought Zoom stocks 2 months ago.
Right.
We wouldn't need to be on here, Carrie. We'd be on our yacht.
There's a business that's not struggling right now.
We'd be going to Mars, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
But I think important part is you bring them to connect together. And oftentimes the answers lie within them with the proper leadership of it. And let them get all their fears and all of this out now. Because if you wait till you see them after this long leg, the patients are going to sense it. And we all know, you put investment into leadership in a team, they have a direct communication to all of the people that you serve.
Right.
And if they're afraid, the patients are going to be more afraid. So there's a lot of new training, a lot of new techniques, doning, doffing, all the aerosol generating, non-aerosol generating, hand scale, which some hygienists don't know what that means. I mean, there's so much massive change basically to absolutely everything we do. And with the pressure on dentistry to come back in that contact-free, contactless experience, puts more pressure on things.
Absolutely. And change is difficult on a normal day for the smallest of things. So when you think about everything that I've known as a person that's been in dentistry for 20 years, practicing in this practice for 10 of those 20 years, let's say, it's not going to be the same. And that's a scary thing to step into. So that alone, and knowing that we have to be in front of that, and we cannot take it that, well, I know that it's safe and it's okay and I've done the work, so therefore they must know. Kathy Jameson, founder of our company, says, assumption is the lowest form of communication. So anywhere where you're assuming your team or your patients know, that's a blind spot. That's a blind spot. So make sure every step you've taken has been shared and communicated, and there's been opportunities to ask questions and participate in the planning process. And I loved what you said, Lisa, about these team members of yours have been connected, their work family in most cases. And if we have not had that connection over this time, healing may have to take place. There may be healing that's going to have to occur as you rebuild and a rebuilding of your team. All of that hard work that you put into building a really great, strong, connected team, we have to do whatever we can that's possible to us to keep them connected. I shared the quote with you earlier as we were planning this, that Simon Sinek, the author, has been putting out in his social media spaces that we need to be physically distant but stay socially close. And there's so much of an emotional aspect to this whole experience for everyone that to ignore that throughout this process is dangerous and is without a doubt a blind spot. So I think it's unified on the front of Transitions in Jameson that please intentionally plan connection time, however it's appropriate and however you're able to, even if it's just sending messages one-on-one to your team members saying, thinking of you, how are you doing, wanting to make sure you're okay. Reach out if you need anything, if you have any questions, just to know that you're still there. And as you begin to prepare to reopen, that you're making time, very, very sacred time to plan together and give room and opportunity for communication. Now let's shift out a little bit to patients, Lisa. I think this is one that could also be taken for granted in terms of what do we need to be doing now, if anything, and what that looks like, and what are our patients thinking right now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the key here is don't go on living the wonderment and people wondering what's going to happen. And once again, you get your team on board, you get communicating, you get them what they need in their training to be able to prepare to come back so that they learn. It's a new dance. It's like we're learning a completely new dance here. We've got to practice. It'd be great to practice before we have our patients be part of
Right.
that, to watch us look a little mechanical, or there's good, we strive for perfect to get progress, but I think the patients, everything from are wondering, when are you reopening? Have you done a personal communication to the patients of all the changes that they're going to see? What have you done to your facility? What are you doing to make sure it is safe to come to the dental practice? Because we have risen to sterile techniques at the highest level of healthcare. And I think you need to be proud of that. And I think also too, the way that we have a cycle of care after COVID with a patient is unrecognizably different. They have, they're going to be sitting in their car. We have virtual parking lots. No one can enter our facility without this screening and this infrared thermometer. So, it's going to become very, very, very technical, but also very lack of human element. So how do you have a way to get them through that process? The biggest way is preparing them before they get there, so it's not a surprise. And you'll have patients with every level of understanding. You'll have the ones that have been having parties with 80 people through this whole thing because it's all a big China conspiracy. Like, you've got every different level. So you're not there to answer their perception of the virus. You're there to educate them on where dentistry fits as something that is essential. We had a short gap because we cared enough to flatten this curve and not spread this virus, but that you're doing everything for their safety. I think the two biggest things right now, and not that it's really changed, but it's going to be intensified, is, am I safe there? What have you, and they have to see something different. They have to see something different. They know what social distancing is. Your reception room chairs, which probably are going to sit pretty empty for a while, 6 feet apart, at least is something, right? So it's communicating with them and then letting them know what's going to be modified in the experience, and that you're following all your public health, all the letters we use, CDC, WHO, all the different things, and that the team is then prepared to answer their questions. And they're going to have questions about the virus. And I say, the virus they can learn about. We're here to show them what we're doing to prevent the virus from and contamination to the best of our ability, like the rest of the world.
That's right. And, again, as I had mentioned earlier, it's a matter of trust and building and connecting that trust and confidence and value. We're going to have to reset the sense of value for these appointments and for this care. You're going to have your early adopters that are going to be ready, and that's great, but you're going to have to take intentional approaches. And also, I think this kind of goes back to the team and preparing yourselves and practicing and going through the processes of what the new approach is going to be, because I've already experienced it firsthand in the medical world for some physician appointments I've had where the confirmation calls, same as they were 4 months ago. And it leaves the patient with like, okay, that seems very unchanged. And you would think, and so it leaves a lot of question marks in the patient's mind of what's this going to look like. And let me tell you, if you don't explain to them what they can expect and what, their perception is they're going to walk into this. And in the end, I'm going to have 5 masks and a shield on. And we need them to be ready to set their expectations and their perceptions appropriately, because anxieties have been a real thing in dentistry for forever. Yeah. For forever. So we have to understand that this is just putting that dental anxiety that some of your patients may have under a magnifying glass. And we have to do whatever we can to be intentional. So your verbal skills, business team, when you're confirming appointments, when you're calling to schedule appointments, giving yourself the time and practicing the verbal skills that you're going to use within those conversations, practicing, thinking through what the questions might be, and practicing how you're going to communicate that, and even working through and refining your written skills, the written word skills, what those emails are going to say, what your confirmations are going to say. The great news is most of the patient communication softwares now have so many ways that you can customize your communications. You know, you're going to be doing more phone calls and conversations than you probably were 4 months ago in terms of patient appointment confirmations. And I highly recommend that you do. And then also use your patient communication softwares to the best of your ability through emails, through texts, through all the processes, even through digital forms and the things that you can provide them, the COVID screening questionnaires and so on. You know, if you don't know what your tools in your practice can do for you right now in this new socially distant work environment, I highly recommend that you put that you ping that on the top of your to-do list of reaching out and talking to the representatives of the companies that you're already investing in for your practice to see what tools they have available to you and how you can utilize them more effectively in what the current state of reopening and scheduling patients and walking them through their patient journey is going to look like. It can do nothing but good for you.
Yeah, and the patient journey is virtual. It's like we literally can have no face-to-face right now. No one can enter our practice until they've been screened, right? Then we have, and I mean, the dentist has an obligation for every team member to do a consented, documented screening before they start work. So the days of just showing up 3 minutes before your day, Carrie, I mean, as Linda Miles says, the morning huddle in dentistry has been taught for 50 years.
Right.
And we're still teaching it.
Right.
Like the not planning before the day, not meeting in the morning, not being able to map out and orchestrate how to keep the safety, how to keep the team. It's absolutely not an option anymore. And these teams need to be prepared. Not about coming in early. They need to be prepared that every day is going to be strategically prepared the night before, because theoretically you're not supposed to see any patient unless they've had a screening.
Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, that's going to be, when you're in a massive change model that everybody's in right now, you must intentionally schedule that connection time to reflect, to prepare, right? What's this day going to look like? Who's on first? What's on second? How's this going to go? What are your questions? Because here's the thing. You may have been communicating for the last 3 months ad nauseum about, here's what the processes are going to look like. Here's what we're going to do. And the moment it's go time, you're going to have a team member in their mind in panic going, so what do I do first? How do I don this PPE? You know, like the question, it's just going to be, you know, it's like when you go at like a student right before an exam, you forget everything you studied. So to have that huddle time to prepare. And then as the days go along, you're going to have time to pause and reflect. What went well? What needs adjustment? Right? Did we schedule appropriately? Do we need more time? Do we need less time? Mrs. Jones, this is what happened. How can we fix this so this doesn't happen again? So that you can have time to reflect and adjust and then reset. Because
well, I think, Terry, it's the foundational systems. So the foundational systems that we've taught for decades, and there's lots of them, right? Is looking at what's the foundational systems you start with rewriting now as a foundation, and then you tweak them over time, right? So everything from the patient, like you said, from patient confirmation to reminders to COVID warnings to the screening, to taking temperatures, to plastic rooms and air purifiers and all those different things. This is the biggest change, dentist. I've been in it 30 years. This is the biggest, massive shift and reset and change I've ever seen in dentistry. And I believe the people that are going to thrive and survive this are the ones, it's going to be based on the decisions they make right now.
That's right. And this is, you know, this conversation that we're in right now is a perfect time to introduce that blind spot number 2, and it's reframing and refocusing your patient-facing systems. The systems that you have in your practice. So a recommendation I have is write out, you know, Lisa and I have our opinions about what those practice systems are, and we're happy to share those for anyone that wants to request. What are the recommended systems that you would recommend from your company, that what you work on with clients? Either one of us would be happy to share those with you.
They're all the same.
So just
no, meaning there's only so many ways you can do things.
So we're happy to give you a reference sheet for you to go through those systems and think about it from, if I were to reopen tomorrow, how do these function in this current state in my practice? What do we need to adjust? What do we need to work on as a team? Because if the blind spot is, oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah. You know, I didn't think about how I was going to get their, you know, do payments. I didn't think about, you know, that everybody's been off work. Everybody in my patient family has been limited in their ability to work and make money, and they don't have any money right now for this diagnosed treatment. Or how am I going to present this treatment to my patient? So thinking through your systems and how you're going to need to adapt and evolve your approach with the current state of things is going to be important for you to start thinking through now, not when you're in the middle of an appointment.
No.
You're going to have enough stress. The practices that are reopening, the things we're hearing are the PPE, the differences, get used to it. Put the stuff on, practice how that feels, because you're going to feel different. It's going to be awkward. It's going to be uncomfortable. And so you being at your heightened level of mindset is going to be challenging. You're going to have to focus on the thing you need to focus on the most, and that's the care that you're providing in that moment. So all of these other steps that are going to help to run the business as effectively as possible, help your team be as effective in their positions and their roles as possible, help your patients through their journey. You're going to need to think of those proactively before the fact. And then give yourself time when you're out of the ops that you are refining, adjusting, communicating, resetting, and working through the obstacles that you and your team ran into. That's when those huddles and team meetings are going to be important.
And another thing too is a scoreboard. The scoreboard's changed in this next phase, and I highly recommend you don't deal with numbers and production and setting goals right now, because if we want to get the processes set up, we want to meet all the requirements of public health and all of the pressure we have on how we need to handle COVID. So I think trust me, Carrie and I know your expenses, the cost of these supplies, and you'll get to that. But I think for this next phase, if your team doesn't see it about time, just change your scoreboard. Your scoreboard is safety and health right now, because we're not back in full operations. Then you evolve to how are we going to get back and catch up on this production that we lost over 60 days. And some of it's recuperable. Some of it can be recuperated. Some practices are putting in 9 Saturdays, or they're extending 3 days a week so that they can catch up on all the people in restorative who were canceled or because of COVID, right? So every practice is different in how they're doing it. But I think as far as the team and as far as, it doesn't mean you don't collect payments. Don't hear me wrong. I think there's huge potential, Carrie, in teledentistry that we've never had before. That a lot of interruptions in emergencies that were walk-in can now be handled that way, right? Because remember, this is a model where there's no more walk-ins. There's no one else. Like right now, there's a big sign on the door, do not enter until we say, because otherwise there's no point doing all this COVID screening. Right. And again, whether you believe in it, whether you're scared of it, either way we look at it, we have no choice but to handle this virus, this global pandemic. And not paying attention to it will be serious. Like, it just won't work.
And your patients are savvy to it. I mean, your patients,
you know what an N95 is.
Right. Your patients are more savvy to protection. Protective measures than they've ever been before. So a lot of things that we're telling people, when it comes to compliance and infection control and OSHA, is your first step is to get compliant with what the OSHA standards were before.
Yes, thank you. The big gap for people is, if we would have done what we're supposed to before COVID, this wouldn't have been that big of a deal if you weren't the thermostat. But we're good. I mean, the good news is everyone will be
start with where you are and build up to where you need to be. And reflect on your systems, what needs attention, what's going to need adaptation, and work through that. The fewer surprises of things I didn't think to work on that you can have, the better, because you're going to be at such a heightened level of stress and intensity in the days. You know, it's been just this marathon of intense focus, right? So from the beginning, when we knew, oh, we're shutting down, to all the different phases of the emotions that you've and the phases of leadership that you've had to deal with as business owners. The intensity is not waning now. The intensity is going to be a new level of intensity of how's this going to look? How am I going to lead my team through this? How am I going to take care of the patients? How am I going to get through these appointments? So
how am I not going to catch COVID?
Right. So we have to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of those systems that if we have a good plan in place and good processes in place, that's going to make the day easier for you. And so do that due diligence. Ask either one of us for a list for you to reflect on and gauge your processes based upon those systems that we recommend you give attention to. We're happy to share those with you. So spoke a little bit in this through that, but another blind spot is to pay attention to time. Pay attention to your schedule, how you're going to be scheduling appointments, how you're going to be honoring your patient's time and your own time. I think there's a hope that things are going to be normal really quickly. I want to encourage all of you to start slow because of all the things that Lisa just mentioned in terms of the respect we have to give to the pandemic that we're in. To build the value and the safety and the precautions necessary to make it a healthy and well-run appointment for not only you and your team members, but for those precious patients, that's going to take time. And on the flip side of that, your patient's time is going to be more valuable to them than ever. So being very respectful and very clear in setting their expectations and understanding of the time they're committing to. And as Lisa said, the different variations that practices are putting into place in terms of when they're seeing patients, it's going to be important that you meet up as a team and determine how can, great customer service is, how easy am I making it for the customer, the patient, to get what they need? How easy are we making it for them? It's very easy when you're in a mode of heightened stress, distress, and protective stability, security mode to think about me, my practice, myself all the time. But remember, you don't have a practice if you don't have those patients. So we have to flip it and think about it from them. What's in it for the patient? How can I make this as easy for them as possible? How can we help them get what they need as we're triaging those most urgent cases that we need to see first when we reopen our doors? Fill your schedule with the people that need it the most first, because they're the ones that are going to need it and are going to need your attention. And then making sure that you're scheduling the appropriate time. There's a vast gamut of the amount of time that people are taking, recommending, and saying that you need. So you're going to have to also give yourself that grace to adjust course as you step into the practice. So if you start slow, that gives you the room to do what you need to do and determine once you're in play again, what it's really going to take care of yourself, your patients, and your team in the best way possible. So,
and I think those people hoping that we'll ever go back to the way it was, my instinct, Carrie, it tells me just from all the energy we've put into this over the last 2 months to help dentists across the continent, both of us have, is that until there's a test everyone can do before they enter the dental practice, positive, negative, and we have a way to handle that, or until there's a complete vaccination, I honestly don't see how we will get back to full volume. But it doesn't mean, for years, Carrie, we've taught dentistry how to do more dentistry per appointment. These days of high volume of people and short appointments, treatment planning is going to need to be thought out of in advance. No more crown of the year club if we can't go to hygiene 15 times a day to fill our schedule, right? So there's going to be some dramatic changes that way. But I think to get back to the same volume, there's probably going to have to be a resolution of this virus, which we know is going to happen. We just don't know when. I don't know. No one knows. Not a politician. I mean, only the good Lord above, whoever you believe in, probably knows when this is all going to be resolved. But I think It's taught us a lot. It's unprecedented. It's never happened before. So the good news is your patients will dance with you because it's unprecedented for them too. But I want over communicate and over understand.
You cannot under communicate at this point. That's what I've been saying over and over again. If you think you're over communicating, you're probably still under communicating. I mean, you can't over communicate is what I mean. And, I think something that I've seen happen here is if before this you didn't have your group of experts, mentors, guides, advisors in your corner, I hope that you see the value of that now from coaches, from the clients that we both have the privilege of working with, but also the services from human resources, OSHA, financial advising. You're going to need to get really clear on what it's going to take for you to navigate the upcoming months, and having advisors help you set those guides into place for you to help you make healthy decisions by are going to be important. Finding the resources that are in alignment with you, your practice philosophy, your core values, your vision for your practice, and letting them help you set a plan that you can help lead your team and your patients through is going to be important. We want you to get through the survival mode and get to a place where you can maintain and optimally in some point in the future that you can feel like you're thriving again. And it's going to take patience. It's going to take perseverance. It's going to take a level of focus that may be uncomfortable for you right now. But I heard a great dentist say, this is where I thrive. This is my realm, and I want to fight for it. And this is your business. This is your skill. This is your gift that you're giving your communities. And it's worth fighting for. It's a worthy profession. It's care that is necessary for your patient family. And if we do the good work, you can get through this. It's going to be hard. It won't be easy. But remember, it's not just about the survival tactics that you're looking at right now and jumping back in. You've got to become aware of blind spots that all of us as leaders have. And how can we be more attentive and aware of the areas of our practice that need our attention? And the things that Lisa and I have been talking about are your team and your patients. Yeah. It's not just about the team.
Your time too.
Yeah. Your time. So, remember these blind spots, getting intentional communication in place. Looking at your systems and what needs to adapt now so that when you're in the real-time dental day, you have processes working for your behalf and for your patients that are working well. And to pay attention to your time, pay attention to your schedule, not only for you and your team and the dental day, but for your patients as well. Time is going to be very valuable to everyone. Lisa, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, Carrie, you know what? Another thing I think to be aware of with patients is to show some empathy. We all know empathy is the core to all human connection. And if we can't have touch or we can't have face-to-face, but empathy they've been out of work, they've gone through their own financial strife with worries and different things. Even no amount of government is meant to replace what a hard worker earns. That's just not what it's for. So remember, when they get their jobs back, then we maximize their benefits. We're going to have to, in the beginning, maximize their benefits like never before until they get on a financial footing again, or use like what Care Credits offers are, right?
Right.
COVID response as the best, or one of the top patient financing. So I think empathy, that they're not just telling you they can't afford it to yank your chain.
Right.
There's some real issues there. It doesn't mean we need to go down in the black hole with them about it. There's other options, but to also just have understanding that that's what'll come up for them too.
Absolutely. And again, it's that emotional intelligence. Put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
You've got your things. Yes, you do. and so do they. And so for us to have a level of understanding among each other and a desire to partner together and communicate together to find ways forward together, that's going to be the thing that gives you a relationship with these people, not just tomorrow, but 3 months from now, 3 years from now, that you cared enough to speak to their concerns. They felt heard, they felt cared for, and the why behind the what that you're doing was everything was built with their safety, security, and well-being in mind. And if we come from that place of intention, if that is your authentic reason, people can smell you being fake from a mile away. So be present in those conversations. And, speaking of being present and being aware, I think, I'm just throwing this out as a little curveball, Lisa, but I think a blind spot for leaders is your own self-care. The level of stress that all of you are experiencing right now is probably very dangerously high. So it's important, as we spoke about, finding those guides and mentors and resources to support you through this. Do not be an island right now. We are already seeing the negative impact this stress and this sense of isolation that doctors are sensing is having on people that we were directly connected to. And it's devastating and heartbreaking. And you do not have to navigate this stress alone. Find people to help you. Anything that you're experiencing from that, Lisa?
Yeah, I think it's use the resources. There's lots of resources with the associations. I just read this morning about anxiety. The suicide rate in both countries is predicted to double. I mean, don't ignore the unspoken and don't ignore what you're saying in your inside of your head. There's so many people to help you between what we've just done, what the industry is working to do after they get our PPE. Right, and that's been their challenge of dealing with the world shortage, so we can see dentistry. I think never before have we all been equal. We're all in the same position, and we all have to help each other. Hence, Carrie, why I love working with you. And people are people, and dentistry is a human capital business where physical and social distancing is our worst nightmare. But it doesn't have to kill us, because nightmares can be laughed at in the morning after you understand them.
Right. Yeah. And, I want you to say, Lisa said this at the beginning of our session. So I think it feels right to say it again right now. You don't have to have all the answers, and you can seek out support and mentors and people, organizations to help you find those answers. So if your sense of overwhelm that you feel like you should know, I give you permission to take that off of your back, because we're all navigating through this. And the more that we can support each other and that we can seek out the support from others to help us find the right answers, the less alone you're going to feel through this. And the more likely more of us will come out of the other side healthy and well through this. So Lisa and I are here for you. Lisa in Transitions has some great forms of communication. Many of you that are watching this probably already receive her Tuesdays with Transitions emails. If you don't, highly recommend that you sign up to receive those. In addition, if you don't receive Jameson's email communications, Lisa, if it's all right, we'll provide links at both of our areas that we're sharing this for you to access Transitions and for you to access Jameson and get locked in, because we're both, from both of our organizations, sharing a lot of complementary resources at this time for our dental friends in the profession. So I certainly want all of you to have the opportunity to receive those communications and those resources. So we'll both put up some links for you to access both of our companies wherever you're receiving the link to this this session. Anything else that you'd like to share on what you're working on, Lisa?
No, I think together, both the COVID survival guide for dentistry is taken over our websites, our life, and I will sleep when they find a vaccination. I'm just hoping for that day.
That's right.
And I appreciate your tireless work. I mean, at the end of the day, we care.
Yeah.
And this is not a time to not reach out. And it's not about pitching. It's about we're all in this together. And that's our give back, Carrie, you and I, with our big hearts, whether people know it or not, to get dentistry back. Dentistry will be back.
Yes. And please reach out. If there are particular topics or areas that you're struggling with, chances are one or both of us has either resources on those topics, or we have the connections of the people that do. So let us be a connector for you. So there's a bridge to your island, and it's through Transitions in Jameson. So let us be that for you. So Lisa, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you. I love the journey with you. And this is just a process. We got a long way to go here.
That's right. That's right. So please stay connected with us. All of you that are listening, thank you for your valuable time. Hang in there. Onward we go. And we're going to get through this. And it's going to take a lot of work. But we're here to be with you on that journey. So take good care of yourselves and of each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you.